beginning, there was only me, Roger Gewald, Dr. Roger. Welcome to another edition of The Gospel According to Dr. Roger, our magic show where you get the real truth about everything, what's really behind all the big stories of today. From me, and I promise from all of our guests, and we have got a really amazing guest today. All of our guests are illustrious, but Bruce Anderson is especially illustrious. He is a long-standing British political journalist based in London. He's principally been involved in conservative politics, including foreign affairs and military matters, but also he's taken a great interest in American events, and he's been an advisor to prime ministers and other high government officials. He's published 2 books, a biography of John Major and an anthology of all of his writings on drink from The Spectator, where he is a very, very special journalist of long standing. He has always insisted that he has a very good radio face. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask Bruce to come on now. Well, welcome, Bruce. It's a great honor to have you on The Gospel According to Dr. Roger. You're a monumental figure, and in so many different areas, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you. And I think really, I just want to start with a very bold question. What do you think, having spent so many years supporting them and studying them, is the future of the Conservative Party? Can Kemi Badenoch actually rally the troops? Are they going to make it, or are they, as so many people say, toast?
I believe that they can. There's no guarantee. There is no immortality in institutions. And of course, Margaret Thatcher had real difficulties. People have forgotten this when she became Tory leader. But one thing she didn't have to worry about was the equivalent of Reform and Nigel Farage. So all she had to worry about was Labour. Now, given how badly this Labour government is doing, in normal political circumstances, the Tories would be ahead of the opinion polls. That wouldn't mean they're guaranteed to win the next election, but they'd be back in place. And of course, who's the people that are ahead of the opinion polls now are Reform. Kemi has in some ways been a disappointment. I thought she's bright, she's new, she believes in Britain. She's quite passionate when she talks about Britain, and I think she should do that more often. But she hasn't yet thrown off one problem, which is that the Tories were in power for 14 years. Now, in my view, the Tories achieved quite a number of things, especially in, say, education. But then there were 2 great problems, COVID and Putin. Neither of those 2 5-letter words, which mucked up everything. And as a result, the tax burden went up and inflation went up. But there were equally 2 problems that the Tories did not address. Welfare, because our welfare rolls are far too high. An awful lot, about 1 million youngsters are now on welfare. Now that's bad for the economy, bad for the country, and bad for the youngsters. There's an American called George Gilder who once came up with a memorable phrase, which, as it happens, I once shared with Mr. Premier Netanyahu. He said the great argument against welfare is not that it wastes money, because a society as rich as America could waste the money if it chose to do so. Instead, it wastes people. Well, we're not as rich as America, but we have the problem of wasting people. Then there's also immigration, which the Tories did not tackle. We have the small boats, we have illegal immigrants. Now, Kemi, I think, has all sound instincts on immigration. And of course, her colour, if she puts out a tough anti-illegal immigrant policy, her colour helps. But she's got a job to do. There is a piece of news that's really only interesting to political insiders, but it may come to be very important. A man called Mark McInnes, Lord McInnes, has been appointed effectively chief executive of the Tory party. Now, he has a terrific record in Scotland. He helped to organise the Better Together campaign, which defeated the move to Scottish independence. And people who know him, and I'm one of them, have been really cheered up. There hasn't been much to cheer Tories up in recent weeks, but the appointment of Mark McInnes is one of them.
Right. Let's talk about Iran. That's another big question I have for you. Will the 12-day war be a conclusive victory, or is some kind of regime change essential? What's going to happen there with Israel and Iran and the United States and Keir Starmer beating his little fists against everything? I don't think we have much say in it, but what's going to actually happen?
I don't know, but there are two problems. First, how did the bunker busters really destroy Iran's capability or capacity to make a nuclear device? I fear not. And where is that uranium, which is almost weapon quality? Where was that? Where is that?
Was it in those trucks, in other words?
Was it in those trucks? And if it is, where is it? And the other thing is, as long as these religious maniacs, I feel sorry because Khamenei will obviously be going to heaven sooner, I think even by natural course. If he's right, I feel sorry for the 72 virgins who greet him.
Let me just go back a minute. Those trucks, it's reminiscent of Tony Blair days and George Bush days. And I was actually hanging around the White House quite a lot at that time. It's reminiscent of those days when there were stories that the weapons of mass destruction went to Syria in trucks, and
Yes,
that's why they were never found. It's very strange.
we never actually worked out whether Saddam Hussein had them.
Yeah.
If you were one of Saddam Hussein's senior advisors, you'd want to bring him good news. So you might say, yes, Mr. President, yes, all-powerful Mr. President, we're nearly there.
Yeah.
Miles away.
Yeah.
But I think the Iranians obviously were nearly there. They're much further on. And what do they want to do? And do these religious maniacs still want to destroy Israel? I suspect, and there are two people I know who know Iran say there are two possible outcomes to this. First, a resurgence of patriotism. Whatever people think of the Ayatollahs and the mullahs and what have you, they don't like their country being bombed.
Yeah.
They feel that you have to rally around. The other thing is, a lot of younger Iranians are thinking, oh, let's keep our fingers crossed. Maybe this will destabilize the regime and we'll get rid of these religious crazies and we can become a normal country.
I mean, which I remember being in Tehran at the time of the Shah. It was the most prosperous, exciting place I'd ever been. It was unbelievable.
I wish I'd gone there, but friends of mine who did agree with you. And it seemed the Shah is partly, I think two things are to blame. First, probably we and the Americans were wrong to get rid of Mossadegh back in the early 50s. He wasn't a communist. He would have become, Iran might have evolved into a constitutional monarchy. And the other thing, I knew various people who were involved in trying to advise the Shah, and he wouldn't be told. They said he was weak but stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard as well.
And that people said, he offended the liberal young because Savak was cruel. He defended the religious because he was seen
just so people know, Savak was the Secret Service. Yeah.
And they were also a pretty inefficient Secret Service. Why didn't they do something about Ayatollah Khomeini? People said Savak was far keener on arresting some girl student with a copy of Lenin in her knapsack and making her take all her clothes off. Yeah. Easy targets. He fell out with the religious because he was seen as not keen on religion. He fell out with the landed aristocracy because of land reform. He just fell out with everybody. And I think a lot of Iranians, there's buyer's regret. A lot of Iranians thought when the Shah was crumbling, good, we can have a proper, normal, modernized country.
Yes.
It wasn't like that.
So what will actually happen? Regime change or more American bombing or what?
I would think one or the other. I don't believe that. I think one weakness in President Trump is, he's a great man in many ways, but over-optimism. I doubt if he understands the passions of religion and nationalism. I think he suspects that most human beings are like him. and they want to do a deal. They want a normal life. Well, a lot of the people now running around don't want a deal. They don't want a normal life. And they're quite likely, if they can make a bomb, they're quite likely to try to do so. So I suspect the 12-day war hasn't solved anything. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. And it's good that the bunkers were bust, but I think that may not be the end of the. That may be the, as Churchill said, it's not the it's not the beginning. It's not the end. It's not the beginning of the end. We can only hope it's the end of the beginning.
You don't think that President Trump's primary goal is peace everywhere, because peace leads to good business leads to domestic stability, good relations with neighbors, and that's what he wants to happen. And he's actually got the Iranians now at a point where uh, their internal resistance and strife is at a new high level. Their regional power is at a new low level, with the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas being suffering such diminution, and Assad losing Syria. The economy is in terrible shape, and they might very well, even the Ayatollahs, welcome some kind of a deal where the sanctions get lifted, the economy gets better, and they're not so unpopular with the public. Is that not all possible? Because that seems to me what President Trump wants, having softened them up a bit first with the bunker busters and such.
I hope you're right. I'd love to think, and if you are right, then President Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, yeah,
But sometimes, in order to have peace, you have to be prepared to make war. And
absolutely.
the Ayatollahs must know that the bunker bust, the B-2s could come back and will come back if they have to. But I think you're right. I mean, I don't think a single American has been killed yet. A single American soldier has been killed yet during this Trump presidency. And I think he'd like to keep it that way.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
think,
quite
go
speak
on.
softly but carry a big stick. It's speak very loudly and try to, if you've got a big stick, but hope you don't have to use it.
Yeah, I think that I think that's what he wants, and I know him through our mutual friend, and yeah, I can easily see that that's his plan, and it's a very intelligent and strategic plan. And after all, he's been a master of reality television and working the room and pleasing the people for many decades. I remember when I interviewed Nigel Farage about why we have such bad leaders in the West. He told me that it's because we used to have people like Eisenhower and Truman and such who wanted to put back having accomplished in the world, whereas today we've just got Oxbridge PPE professional politicians who care about getting a vote, and they haven't really done much else. I thought it was an interesting point, and he said people compare Trump to Boris, but he said I wouldn't compare them for a minute. I mean, I would compare Trump to Berlusconi. These are two men who are commercial tycoons and who know what the customer wants and know how to give it to them. I think it's a possibility that there might not be a regime change, and there might be some sort of a peaceful deal worked out with the Ayatollahs, because they need it so desperately. Because if the economy keeps going to hell and the internal resistance rises, they're afraid of being thrown out, don't you think?
Well, that is optimistic. I hope you're right. We won't know. I don't know. I suppose nobody, I've never heard an assessment of what A is how many all powerful, and he is 86 and there are bound to be people jostling for the succession. And B, what does he and the people around him want? Are they prepared to do what they ought to do, to come to a rapprochement with the West, to forget about Israel, to keep the bunker, to keep well away from bunkers and well away from attempting to develop a nuclear weapon and live in peace? If
Yeah,
that's the case, and if that's what President Trump has done, then the world will be a safer place. Well, the very nature of President Trump is such that he's completely misunderstood in Europe. He's not a sort of, you could never, I mean, I suppose Berlusconi is the nearest, but Trump is Berlusconi on hallucinogens or steroids. Is a remarkable figure, and nobody in this country understands him.
No, the Europeans don't understand him at all. They really don't. Anybody who spends 5 minutes in his presence realizes that everything they've read and seen is not what the man is really like.
But he clearly wants, as you say, he'd like everybody to have a good time
Sure.
and to make deals and to get on with private life and possibly not have to worry about wars. I think Reagan one was a piece.
Absolutely. You put your finger on it. Absolutely. A man who liked himself without being vain more than anybody you can imagine. And yeah, he was a great president.
Very,
What about you? What about Ukraine?
oh, I don't know what I mean. What does Putin want? If he were prepared to declare a ceasefire on the current boundaries, what would the effect be? He could then tell his people, we've had a magnificent victory, we've recovered Soviet territory,
Yep.
we have Russian territory, we have defeated the Nazis in Kiev, and the world is much safer. Would the Russian people believe that, or would they think he started a war to conquer the Ukraine is unconquered, there were a million serious casualties, fatalities or serious casualties, what a waste. And also, what would then Putin think? Would he think, right, where do I go next?
I think on balance, the Russian people would buy that story.
Which one? The optimistic
that we've defeated the Nazis of Kiev. We've done all these things, and it's a victory because Russians love a Tsar, a strong man. They've always loved that, and he will have performed magnificently as far as they're concerned.
Well, in that case, he should declare a peace and declare a victory and go home.
Yeah.
And as for the West, I mean, first of all, there are a lot of people in the West who are ready to fight to the last Ukrainian. I don't see any serious chance of recovering much of the ground that's been lost to Russia.
No.
Certainly not Crimea. And there were some crazy people a couple of years ago saying we could regain Crimea. I don't like to sound too wet and appeasing, but if the Ukrainians ever looked like gaining Crimea, I think Putin would use tactical nukes to stop them.
Absolutely. And just pouring these vast amounts of money and all this ridiculous sounding stuff that Keir Starmer says, I mean, it would be great, but it's not possible. It's not practical. It's not pragmatic.
I agree with you.
Henry Kissinger was right a few years ago. Nobody listened to him.
Kissinger is the wisest figure in foreign affairs. Actually, one of the sad things is two of the wisest people in foreign affairs in my lifetime have been Henry Kissinger and his sometime boss, Richard Nixon.
Nixon had his moments. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, Kissinger had his faults. I can remember an interview with Kissinger's brother, and they said to him, "Gee," at the end of the interview, "how come you have no accent? You sound American." And he said, "Because I'm the Kissinger that listens."
Well, he was a great man, and we could always do it. Because by temperament, I remember once suggesting to David Cameron he used a line in a speech, and he said he wouldn't. And he was quite right. I said, "Describe yourself as a neo-Kissingerian realist."
There you go.
He said, if I said that, 90% of people wouldn't know what I was talking about, and the other 10% would disagree.
You were David Cameron's muse, really. You were
No, I saw a lot of him, but he was his own muse.
Okay. But you were one of his chief advisors, yes?
No, I wouldn't say that. I talked a lot to him, and he was David's not 59 yet.
Yeah.
He's a terrific fellow. And still, can you hear that?
Yeah, do you know what that is? Is that David Cameron ringing you or something?
I don't know who it is anyway, it's gone off.
Okay.
So No, I talked to him a bit, but I don't think
I think it was Cameron ringing you to say, no, no, you were my muse.
I. He is a very good, a very fine. And one of the things I've done him for about, oh God, since he was in his early 20s. And from the first moments I came across him, everyone said the same, simply the best. And he was about 20. In the 1992 election, he was 25, and he did about 5 men's work.
Huh.
And he had judgment, which doesn't usually come at that young age.
No.
And he's very happy in his own skin. And
Like Reagan, yeah.
like Reagan, different, but also all the people I know who worked in Number 10, and they can't all have been lying. And I sometimes waited, as one would, to there's a glass or two to have been drunk, so people's tongues aren't too tight. And they would all say the same, that in any meeting started on time, he would apologize if he was 5 minutes late. And after all, prime ministers sometimes have, he would apologize, which also signaled to them that meetings did start on time. He was always there was an agenda which was followed, and he was the best briefed man in the room or whatever. He just cut through the topics like a combine harvester.
Wow.
No, I think we haven't seen, as I say, he is fit. I mean, he doesn't look. I mean, politics wears people out.
Yeah.
Tony Blair looks a lot. Well, he's got a slim figure, but he hasn't his face. Tony Blair's face. He's about 72. His face doesn't look any younger than that.
Yeah.
I think David, if the Conservatives, I don't see why David shouldn't come back as Foreign Secretary in
Huh.
a Conservative government.
Huh. What about the Middle East? We haven't talked about that.
Well, my worry is that what has happened about the Palestinians. Now, I think Mr. Netanyahu and some of the people seem to believe. I remember a Jewish friend of mine saying to me years ago, he said, "You Anglo-Saxons and Americans don't understand. You think that every problem must have a solution. It isn't so. Some problems are insoluble. You've just got to deal with them every year." Well, yes and no. My worry would be how dangerous is militarization? How many young Palestinians, and there are some young Palestinians who now hate Hamas, which has caused their country to be smashed up.
Sure.
I suspect rather more of them hate Israel. I don't know how we achieve a Palestinian state because of the settlements in the West Bank. The tragedy is, looking back, another war, which was one of the most successful wars in modern history, a successful war since Bismarck, was the Six-Day War, in which the Israelis defeated all the Arab armies and secured their own position. And
Sure.
well, but that, looking back, that was a tragic missed opportunity. The Israelis had overrun the West Bank. The Jordanians didn't want that back. That was the time to set up a Palestinian state. You could take some territory, and of course the Israelis would have held on to the old city. They weren't going to give back the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall, but that was an opportunity missed. I don't know how, but I can't see how there can be. I can't see how there can be a solution without some sort of Palestinian state, and I can't see how we get a Palestinian state.
Yeah, it's very, especially when it's led by Hamas, who deny the right of another country to exist. How can you make a peace deal?
Right, from the river to the sea,
Uh,
and they mean
I
good.
I'm sure you know what RUSI is, the Royal
Yes,
United Services
yes.
Institute, the military and geopolitical think tank in Whitehall. I attended a conference they held many years ago, quite some years ago, where they had all the top Israelis and all the top Palestinian Arab representatives. I mean, never before have they all been brought together for a 2-day conference, which I was privileged to attend. And I think it was the Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Manuel Sassasian or something like that. I can't remember his name. Lovely man. Um, and he began the conference, as I recall, or somebody did, if it wasn't he, with the first speech, the opening speech. And he actually began with a joke. and it was that a Jew and an Arab die and go to heaven, something like this. I probably got it wrong, but they get there, and God said, "Oh well, since you two have come up here together, I always let people ask me a question, but I'm going to ask you two to ask me a question together, a joint question. So go off and come up with a question." So they went off and they came back, and um, the good Lord said, "Well, have you come up with a question?" And the Arab gentleman said, "We have, my Lord, yes, we have." And he said, "What is your question?" And he said, "Will there ever be peace between us?" And God thought and said, no, not in my time. I always
Yeah,
remember, I thought, what a story to start this conference with, because
yeah.
it is intractable.
Well, one hopes God's wrong. One
Yeah,
thing it does seem to is Syria, and that could be an example for because regime changes worked in Syria. This new
yeah,
guy, who
yeah.
did not necessarily have an attractive CV,
After
he seems
after after 600,000 poor Muslims had to die.
oh
But
right, but it may be because Syria again. I went there once or twice. I mean, it seemed that it was obviously old Hafiz al-Assad kept a very tight grip on everything, which it was
totally, totally.
in some ways it was good to be a. I'll tell you a story, which a little guy was driving along in Damascus in a battered old Trabant and was almost shoved off the road by an 80-foot Cadillac with blackened windows. And he went across to the blackened and knocked on one of the windows, and a piece of paper fluttered out. And he went the next day. It was a phone number. So the next day he went to the local call box and said, "Are you?" And a very deep, rather sinister voice said, "Yes." And this says, "Are you the guy whose car almost forced me off the road yesterday?" Sinister voice, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And the little guy says, "No, Hafiz al-Assad." So the little guy says, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And Assad says, "No." The little guy says, "Thank God for that," and puts the phone down. But Syria always struck me as having potential and a civilized population who wanted a better life. And maybe they'll now get one. And if they can do it, why can't Iran?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time, Bruce, but it's been fantastic for our first interview together. I hope to have some more with you. You're a legendary figure, and it's really been an honor. Thank you for making the time, and we will have you back again soon.
Oh, thank you, Roger. And on the subject of legendary figures, the great Dr. Roger, and to be called that, to be called a legend by a legend really is a compliment.
You're
Both on
very
half
kind. You're
deserved.
very kind. Thank you.